New Year's resolutions. I'm going to be talking in this video about why there are many of these New Year's resolutions. Particularly around this time, we're coming up on January, the first month of the year, as we sit here finishing off the final days of December, today being Christmas. So I'm going to start off by talking about this period in which we're coming out of a period of darkness, and I'm not an expert at all. I haven't studied in any way, shape, or form the deeper science behind the solstice is. I think it's taken me a while just to get the basics down, I guess, to a certain degree. Um, Although I have a healthy interest in the sun and its activity, so think about it this way: people are colder. It's the holidays. People are spending more money. They're on the internet more. They've got their furnace cranked on a little bit more. They're using a little bit more energy. We are mammals, right? So, there's certain instincts and behaviors that are coming out because it's winter, certain emotional needs, perceived emotional needs. Thus, drama can come about certain this time period. Also, again, soul searching as well. Soul searching, spiritual experiences. The winter outside cold, things shut down. Why are we alive? What's the meaning? In some cases, it is a matter of getting the basic water, food, gas, fuel, other necessities, firewood to stay alive. There's something also very grounding about winter. I would also say if you're off grid in the winter, even more so if it involves a wood stove and things of that nature. I still need to get one installed here, but and someone's a little bit more involved in some of the primal aspects of living off the grid, it really deeply connects one to that experience. So nothing wrong with the coming together of people, families. Um, I don't have that type of strong background in my own life, so there's a lot of pain there that is hard for people to be exposed to. So I try not to expose you to what I walk with and the pain within every holiday season, centering around Christmas in particular. I try to stay away from painful things, experiences, people. I really don't even feel normal though about spring or summer, especially now experiencing this high altitude living, and it has a particular biological effect that I don't think others understand, but it's something that I'm living with. The point of all this, eh, I look at things from both perspectives, not just negative, whether or not others see that as well or look at things from both ways. So I look at something like that, being at a higher elevation and even being sensitive to certain energies or negative energies or interference, with also insight, having dreams, or I don't know if I would consider them visions, but maybe a waking knowing, where a thought is very pressing, that strikes me, not a psychic attack, but a thought deep within my own psyche, like unraveling a puzzle piece and going, that's it. This is a truth within that is bubbling, that is emerging, something to that effect. So I have those moments. And not all that is stuff that I necessarily record, get up in the middle of the night, write down. Perhaps I should. Perhaps sometimes I'm superstitious. Oh, no, it's just more. And then sometimes you get confused. Well, is that just more of the programming, the psychic attack, or is that like a true vision or a true insight? Is he constantly looking at things from an objective perspective, but in staying in that perspective, not necessarily looking deeper within the thought of what that message may have been? But still it being in the back of the mind that there is just a pattern of a lot of these things emerging within me. So, kind of in this introduction now, taking a few minutes, the winter is a spiritual time. And I think I've reflected that. Someone could be looking also within for their light when they're not getting the light without. Spiritual beings may deal with some weird stuff around the holidays because of the way that archonic entities through humans can affect with those light beings. And it happens. That's why some of us, we avoid those shopping centers and those supermarkets and some of those places where many humans in seeking of many energy and material things around them, feeding, if you will, right? Some of us we avoid those places because we don't like the energy going on there. That's why, when I go to the supermarket, I try to go at late hours or early in the morning, actually, in some cases. I know myself going to the market at 6 o'clock in the morning just to not deal with the crowds yesterday. early in the morning on Christmas Eve. Did you get myself some chicken? Well, some other things too. Some salsa on sale. But let's get to the meat of the matter. This is a time to recenter on what our goals are for next year, things we want to change. There's a reason why in January they have the New Year's resolution, period. So it's already like 9 days after December 21st. And again, like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but it starts getting more lighter, more light, more light. That human's going to get a little bit more vitamin D, a little bit more of that light energy. Right now is like the deep, almost like human hibernation period for me. It's like down to sleep at 4:35, not using a generator to keep my lights on, normally powered by the sun, but only so many batteries. So when it gets past a certain hour, folks, I'm out. I'm waking up earlier than normal, and I'm not exposed to the cell phones, the Wi-Fi, um, the cell phone towers, the smart meters, or other strange voltage energies, street lights, right? So that's another reason why my circadian rhythm biologically is getting up way before the sun. I'm still working on finding a way to channel us to something more evolved than what it is right now. But at least for right now, when I get up early, I'm going to be doing these podcasts and sharing these excessive thoughts and energy with you. So, kind of learning my own body a little bit more, as I've also learned about my own biological response to the sun, and that helped me write the ebook. I learned about these things firsthand and also seen in the world, and I've also seen the influence of the Saturn return. I'm not deep into astrology, but certain components, absolutely. And everybody also has their different perspectives with regards to that. But I've certainly seen the effect of the Saturn return in my own life at the age of 29 in the year 2009. I've seen the effect of the Saturn return, the second one, age of 58, 59, 60, in others in a profound way. I would call it the second pass. A healthy human being should have three passes, I would think, or three cycles of life. Hitting the end of your first pass at 29, the end of your second pass at 58, 59, 60, and then maybe coming in for a third pass if we're meant to live that long. Maybe I'm meant to live that long. Maybe you are as well. To get there, we have to take the baby steps. I've dealt with the primitive fear of death and growing old. I think I am now, or I guess the ego is of. Well, some of this stuff might be natural as we transition literally from one age to another. And I'm no expert at this, but here we're at this point where we have a conjunction of coming out of a new moon, December 21st. Should I mention the things going on in the world? Probably not. A recent geomagnetic storm, an asteroid flyby, and I'm sure there's other influences that I'm not even thinking about, where this is just a conjunction. I'd like to believe those that look at the cyclical influences that kind of pinpoint 2012 is not an endpoint where it all would blow, but I see the passing of energy in these cycles as being very influential. And so not seeing 2012 as a tail into something, but more or less like around the middle. Because I see a lot of stuff coming in the 2020s, whether people are looking at an ice age influence or the solar cycle or other things, there's something coming. And I would rather be wrong about the things that I've projected. I don't think that I am. I think the more or less accurate portrayal would be multiple realities happening at once. I've always believed that. So some people are going to be in some positive situations based on things they've done and things they're here to learn. Some people might be facing challenging things that they survive because they're here to survive those things, to see what they're capable of. So they may find out that they're capable of beating off an army or something to that effect. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've done bad things to others, but the karma is darkened. So I want to say that as well. We're here to live out this human experience. And we're going to face some challenge, a lot of challenges. For myself as a public speaker, I could see, some of my own challenges, things I want to overcome. I could see what some of them are. Some of them seem pretty difficult to overcome. But to overcome those things is necessary for the greater good of reaching people, unplugging people from the matrix, literally. Not an actual plug they pull out from the back of their head, but a metaphoric one, if you will. But people like wake up to one idea and then it's like a domino effect. And I feel like that's what my role is here. That's what my role is here, and I believe it's meant to be here. And I need to go deeper into the thought and share that and not hold back. But to also, right, talk about the things that affect us all and put that as a primary piece, a chess piece in my strategy to waking people up, than using vinegar per se. It's like the old analogy of using honey or vinegar. Sometimes I'm using the vinegar approach as a social experiment, right? And not telling people what they want to hear and letting the presentation, the words be harsh as hell. And then there are other approaches. Someone dedicated to actually truly waking people up would be willing to adopt the different approaches at my own speed as an individual. It's easy for people to be critics when they are on the firing lines as a public person, to be berated and insulted and be dehumanized for what it is that they're trying to do. But now that I'm going on my 11th year, 12th year going on, I'm thinking about the evolution of myself and what things need to evolve in order to reach more people, in order to help more people awaken, what things need to be adopted, what things need to be modified, what new things do I need to learn, what things do I need to unlearn, and then other things go on and on and on, and then things of a private nature. But there's just been stages of this, and I do believe that we are meant to be growing and stepping up, evolving spiritually in these steps up the ladder every year. I can see throughout my own life, every year has come with like a new challenge, but a new step forward. You know, stepping forward, certain things stand out, and they usually come with the end of one experience, the beginning of a new one. Especially if I'm was stepping out of something bad, for example, like living in a teardrop camper in Portland to get in an RV and leaving Portland. This whole goal being Costia County, Costia County, it being like this chess piece destination that was so significant in the lead up to that, without even foreseeing that by the time I got there, it'd only be there a few months because I'd be kicking people off their land. But was I meant to be there and have that experience? It seems that that is so. Wasn't fully conscious of it, but I knew subconsciously I had to be there and to interact with certain people, and for me to meet certain people, to meet other people, that led me to interviewing a bunch of people being kicked off their land. Something that most people, A, don't experience, B, let alone get to document, and just find yourself embedded as a local reporter in a community. And I felt that that was divine. And I feel like that saga of whatever's going on there is still unresolved and is still in play. And it's still part of a larger picture, but it's part of the big picture of the larger struggle of mankind's journey towards freedom and those archonic checkpoints, if you will, that are set up to herd us back into the matrix. On a personal note, then I would take this to another level of things people might contemplate, just general things with regards to New Year's resolutions. But for myself, looking at what they're doing with the algorithm and the need to evolve beyond that limitation, to encourage people to sign up to the newsletter, to support in what ways they can within what is reasonable for you. And if you cannot afford it, do not support my work. Don't worry about it. Only give what you want to give if you want to give. If not, don't worry about it. But I will find a way to keep doing what it is that I'm doing as I try to crystallize and see that vision for what it is myself. And that is just constantly doing what it is that I do within a state of balance and covering multiple topics that need awareness, and not letting my energy get pulled into certain topics or world events as they kind of have been in ways that I'm not really putting out there on the internet. But certain current events taking place now have my focus and have my disruption, have disrupted my field. And see, I want to come out emerge in 2018 as a person that has the personal discipline as a man, and yet as a strong spirit. So that would equate to women as well, females. Okay, strong spirit necessary to not only grow as an individual, but I'm speaking for myself, to report on what it is that is important. That's not a role a lot of other people feel like they're called to do. Report, put out information. Call it journalism, media activism, being a philosopher. It's not easy. It's not easy being on the radar full time, and it's not something every audience member can have empathy for unless you've experienced that. You can't experience that unless you put out something in the public domain on the internet and then deal with years of the energy blowback because you're trying to wake people up. And until you've actually done that and felt that, it's not an insult or energetic emotional blow up to say you don't know what it's like because there's certain things that I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like to be thrown rotten tomatoes and be called "get out of here, transvestite," and live in a certain era and time to where you could be killed being different. But I'd say the world's changed since then. What I do know is that they have made it to be a great taboo, if you will, as you know, to be associated with conspiracy ideas and to be a spiritualist. And I don't mean to put that into a box, but to use that in a general sense. Not a member of any religion, but to have interest in spiritual ideas. Not necessarily a theological religion or philosophy, but to have interest in spirituality or the battle of good and evil. Why should my views be put in the box of schizophrenic? That's kind of insulting. That's like us being back in the old days saying those people are witches, burn them, kill them, force them to take drugs. That's insulting. So a person like me with the topics and then, of course, thing called the MGTOW stuff misogynist. It puts me in the box of don't go there. I got to be able to move forward throughout this whole thing without letting those type of limitations stop me. It's easy to go back out and just flip burgers, if you will, or stock groceries overnight, or deal with the boss shouting at you, but taking the money and leasing out. Because I don't believe in selling your soul. Well, some can, and I do believe in some situations it's great to have the right job at the right place when you can get it and when good hard work is respected. I'll tell you what, some places don't respect the good hard worker that shows up every day for 5 straight years, that doesn't complain, that doesn't call sick. I've been through this whole work reality where I see people abuse their own job. Places where I never even called in sick. When I was there scheduled to work, I was there, showed up. Um, and we're all here having our own experiences. And we may live during a certain part of our life doing a number of different things, working for ourselves and working for others. Usually a lifetime where we're mostly working for others in some way, shape, or form. Where it's usually like not in our reality to survive outside that box. And sometimes a little bit of both. I don't know. As far as like a small business idea, what I would do, I've thought about that. What would bring in an extra $100 per month on the internet as far as like a part-time job that was not corrupt and not based on buy now, Philly, but just another way to make an extra $100. Maybe not related to my YouTube channel, but by doing some work that's legitimate on the internet. And I actually post, I think, either on Twitter or Facebook. And anyway, I think in this day and age, those types of opportunities should exist. They should. And it should exist outside of Bitcoin, which arguably can be compared to gambling. It's debatable whether or not it's backed by anything. It's backed by the faith, the collective faith, and the networking of computers working well, and the grid, and these mining devices vampiring on the grid. Do you realize how much energy is consumed by the mining machines? Some comparisons are in that it's comparable to nation states. That nation states, in some cases, use less energy than the Bitcoin mining machines, and that's troubling. Or the cryptocurrency mining machines. Doesn't sound very sustainable. Doesn't sound very self-sufficient. So I'm a contrarian on a number of levels. And it seems like for me, I have to keep doing what I'm doing, being true to myself, even if some people are going to be offended. Sign up, support, leave, drop out, misunderstand, understand. I need to just keep doing what I'm doing because there's going to come a time where a lot of these ideas they're confusing now, I think will come together, kind of like a puzzle pieces coming together, and it snaps together, and then it makes sense. And the timelines in these references, and from geopolitical to the solar flares, to what people are forgetting about off-grid living and the role that it can play, to some of the other commentary about consumerism and the false spirituality and some of the things that people are missing about human compassion, it may seem very confusing now, these different topics and things that I discuss. But I think at some point it's all going to come together and people are going to understand, even if it's mostly being done for future generations. I appreciate those of you that have supported my work. But deep down to my heart, I look at the future, looking back at this content, having more understanding, if the content can survive. So those that support and have supported in the past have made a contribution to this being the sole focus. Right here on this channel, and continuing to push forward, continuing to go the distance in the face of the YouTube algorithm, in light of the censorship and the new net neutrality rules, whatever's going to go down with that, I'm not going to stop. I see a future of more written works. Hell, if I'm in a case, an off-grid situation where somebody's got the equipment to publish a newsletter, it's on. Let's publish a newsletter locally. Let's reach people locally with a newsletter. Let's go back to the old technology. A lot of things are possible. But while the grid is still up, while the internet's still up, while there isn't overt censorship and there's still word of mouth, you can always tell someone about this channel. People have told me word of mouth and send me to all different types of people's directions all the friggin' time. All the time. People refer others to me. You can refer me to others. But I enjoy being somewhat obscure, unknown, right? A starving artist, kind of lurking in the shadows, reaching less people than I did 5 years ago. I'm not complaining. I'm realizing there are highs and lows to periods. And this is considered one of those low periods right now where it's challenging to reach a certain amount of people and we're dealing with certain complications. But I want to look forward to the end of this decade and the beginning of the next decade, not with fear, but I do have a forecast. And it involves a stage managed war. But I want to have hope for the future. I want to somehow see my own predictions wrong. Can I have a future? Can I just see? I still think things are going to end up on a certain, but I want to have a future for myself, regardless of the destiny for the world. And if that's possible, I want to reach that. We got to deprogram from a lot of things to even just to get there. But yes, this has pretty much been the introductory thoughts, just kind of New Year's resolutions for myself. This manifests in a number of ways, but centering around, I guess, the reset and what it is that we're here to do and say, speaking as a public speaker, perhaps not to other public speakers, but out loud to myself. But you can have an interest in anything from name one type of sporting endeavor to some sort of artistic endeavor. This is a reset time of sorts. Passing the new moon, December 21st, going into the new year, and more light. We need to stay away from distractions, negative energies, arguing. A lot of this can be on autopilot, automatic. Even those people that run interference in our lives around Christmas, because the low light out there, they may not be aware of their own actions. We may not be aware of our own actions when we're having certain or reasons why we're feeling a certain way emotionally. By having this knowledge of how we're influenced by the abundance of light or lack of light, we can be responsible for where our energy goes. When there's a lack of actual physical light, we can bring in light by visualizing that light, for example, in the darkest of dark. Whether you meditate by candle in the darkness, for example, or whether it's sitting out in the sun during those beautiful hours in which the sun is shining in some areas in the winter. If you're fortunate enough to have that experience, in some cases, we're very fortunate in that case in Colorado to go out and feel that natural sun beaming down upon us. While the nights may be very cold, and they are. Hell, I don't even have, certain conventional heating options. I'm very cold in some cases, but I'm also surviving when that sun comes out, and knowing that we're at that higher elevation, just knowing that there are places like Portland, Oregon, where they're just inundated with maybe a month of cloud cover. I've already seen the effect of no sun over a society without even realizing why that was really taking place. But I always knew on a deep level, on a basic level, lack of sun, more zombie behavior, more vampire behavior, more drug addiction, more just abuse issues, other things in the population, and just looking at, and then just noticing their moods change. It becomes spring and summer, and the temperatures rise. They're no longer freezing, and they're getting their vitamin D. But thinking about that on a deeper level. So again, in recentering, throwing this back in your court, this is the reason why people think about their New Year's resolutions during this period. And having just shared with you, just personal New Year's resolution related psychology, right? About as we experience new light, and it for me literally being a literal thing, more light, more natural energy, literally going into my solar panels, literally for my batteries, the power of the lights, camera, computer, internet, um, to bring to you these videos. If you look at the period in which I'm making more videos, it's spring, it's summer, it's fall. If you look at the period in which the videos are bottomed out, it's this period. It's the dead of winter. Going into January, going into February. January, February, there is an increase in light, so this is the upswing. This is why. Okay, you see the New Year's resolution. So health related, smoking's a common one. Maybe for some it's relationships, maybe for some it's a new career, but it's all based in the energy moving forward. So think about those health things, think about those personal goals. I've given you kind of ideas about kind of the things that I deal with as an alternative media person. The alternative media in general could do its own New Year's resolution. How can they restore their roots to something alternative as opposed to the mainstream? Otherwise, it doesn't seem like they really, as a collective, are thinking about things like New Year's resolutions. I think that some people are still riding the gravy train. Some people are don't even know what it's like to really suffer. Some people are still enjoying their role as propagandists. They're not really focusing on their own spiritual development in this darkest of dark. And so they're living a different path. So there's choices. There's choices. Someone, right? This is a good place to end it, could realize why they're in pain during the dark of winter. And they can look at what is upsetting them and seek to bring remedy to that. But if they stuff that or start blaming others or seeking to fulfill their energy from things they've taken from other places instead of dealing with their own lack of energy, um, they're going to be hurting. So there's a choice to make during the holiday season. That's why it's a spiritual time. It's a time for us to connect with our own light and our own energy. I think it'd be wise for humans to take a few periods or days in silence to where you don't speak to anyone or access the internet. Ultimately, that's the world that I'm trying to build for myself, to where I really am off the grid on an internet sense. And I just upload videos and that's it. And I live a very quiet life. And I've worked really hard to live a quiet life. And I'm going to work very hard to make it even quieter. Um, I'm concerned about the direction of society. I'm seeing some dangerous signs. Lack of compassion and empathy regarding certain things is in and of itself a dangerous sign. It's a sign of infection. When humans don't show a certain sign of compassion for others when they're victimized, it's a bad sign of some sort of an infection that I don't identify to be human. Doesn't matter whether you like that verdict or not. It's a very bad sign when there's a lack of compassion regarding certain things, so they can introduce then technology and they can introduce other things to further modify the human being to be less or aware with it, with that loss of certain energies where compassion may come from, or awareness comes from, the shutting down of consciousness. It's shutting down awareness, rationale. So when something threatening really is there, right? They won't react because they've been desensitized to that type of imagery. So a lot of people have been desensitized to alien imagery. They've been desensitized to all this World War III stuff. So a lot of people are walking into the future, in some cases myself unconsciously, walking into a future without hope, When you have a people walking into a future without hope, living in fear, you have in more ways than one, in which I care to describe, harm to the mind, body, and spirit health. We can't have that. But it's ultimately what we're up against. And we have to cure ourselves now at this point and not rely on modern doctors when we're hurting in mind, body, and spirit. And they're often affected by the same illness. And a spiritual attack can end up an attack that leads to a physical illness. For those of us that have been dealing with spiritual attacks our whole lives, unless we end up learning how to get a handle on this, we have a complicated older life waiting for us. And that's what terrifies me. Yeah, I see I don't know if you realize that, but it's like, yes, I see the good energy in some cases that comes about from my video work. There's also a lot of misunderstandings about what it is that I stand for, what is it I'm doing here with these videos day in and day out, and what I truly believe or whatever, or how good it is that I am, what I did with my hair has a nice haircut. It's also leads to superficial. And I think people watch my channel for the wrong thing and forget the message. It's not about how nice my place looks. It's not about how nice I look like or not, or how my voice sounds. Maybe in the future I got to go more of the written. Whether I sound hoarse or not, it's what I represent. I'm one guy doing this by himself. And I know my content has led to this, to a place where it's just me. Yeah, so other people can use this time in the darkness to pull themselves into the new cycle. As long as they understand it's a cycle. And we go through this and it's natural for people to be feeling a certain way emotionally, for people to want to be alone, for people to even want to take a vacation, and I did, and I ended up taking the wrong vacation, and it caused me an illness. Does that make me a horrible human being for being willing to take a risk? No, I'll take a risk in the future, actually. In fact, I had a dream last night. I was taking Amtrak, and I was excited, and I woke up and realized it was just a dream. And I'm saying that in light of the fact that there was an Amtrak casualty situation in Washington with a derailment. I'm not going to let a derailment of a train scare me away from riding Amtrak. I'm not going to let one bad situation where I travel to California and end up coming back stop me from traveling in the future. Although I'm just going to put some more time and energy and effort into that. See, that the whole thing about that was to shake myself up. And we got to take risks in some cases where it's safe enough to take risks and appropriate. Um, at the same time, we should stay away from inappropriate risks when we're feeling lonely and risky behavior. There's a lot of people out there involved in promiscuous activity, in which I no longer am. And you can see the Craigslist ads all throughout the internet. And one of the things that I had to learn in 2009 10, much to my dismay, is there's a lot of people out there just hooking up and going from person to person to person that are not looking to truly love someone for who they am. I had to learn that on my own. Um, you know, People typically that give dating advice are typically giving advice on just getting laid or something to that effect. It's not really dealing with, you know, deeper things of a soul, nature. So I had to learn some things myself in the school of hard knocks. And that's another subject for another time. But yes, by being aware of these things, people could use, the idea of the New Year's resolution in the most mindful of ways. By seeing themselves emerging out of this darkness into this new year of potential.